Dee and Scott will remind you of how much time you have left and when it is over, okay? You have 1 minute for your first answer to your first question. Which political leader from the past 50 years, besides Ronald Reagan, do you see as a role model?
Well, I think, for me, I look at young leaders that we have in Washington today as the role models for myself. I see young leaders like Paul Ryan, Marco Rubio, Rand Paul, Eric Campbell, guys that are finally getting the discussion back to what it needs to be in Washington. They're focused on cutting spending and having real policy discussions about real issues.
Okay, thank you. You have 1 minute for your answer to this question as well. Making sure my timekeeper's caught up with me here. In what specific ways would you help to support and unite the Republican Party in this district?
Well, I think it starts by recognizing the diversity of our party. And the one thing that I've learned in getting out and meeting with many of you on the committee is just how diverse our party is. This committee has people on it that span just about every part of the spectrum of Republican Party politics. We need to start focusing on what we agree on. And we need to start recognizing that if we don't, then we'll continue to lose elections. And we'll continue to get the result we've gotten out of Washington. Our problems are too great for us not to get serious about uniting as conservatives, getting behind our candidates when they win primaries, and making sure they win general elections.
Todd, this question, you have 2 minutes to answer.
Okay.
Given the 8th District vulnerability to natural disasters, what would be your approach to funding for FEMA and the Army Corps of Engineers with the current budget crisis?
Well, I think we've got to have a policy that provides some federal aid when we're affected by natural disasters. Clearly, we know firsthand here in southeast Missouri how devastating those disasters can be. From ice storms to floods to tornadoes, the 8th District has experienced, at least different parts of it, experienced all of those things within the last few years. But what we need to do is we need to make sure that the aid for that aid to be available, we've got to make sure that the aid packages are focused on providing that disaster relief. Congress just passed yesterday, I believe, $60 billion worth of aid for Hurricane Sandy. The problem with that is only $17 billion of that $60 billion actually went to victims of the storm. The other $43 billion was essentially assorted for. That's indicative of everything that's wrong with Washington. It's the culture of spending. We have enough money to provide relief for natural disasters. We just have to be willing to prioritize it and leave the other stuff for another day.
2 minutes for your answer on this one as well. What is your position on reauthorizing the 2008 Farm Bill, which did expire September 30th of 2012? Be specific, please.
We need a long-term farm bill. It's absolutely ridiculous that Congress has not been able to pass a farm bill and get that renewed. It's critical to a number of places in our country, but most certainly here in the 8th District. You know, the people in the audience that are farmers or ranchers will understand this. But people involved in agriculture, it's the only industry I know of where you're a price taker on both ends. You've got to take the price for your input, and then you've got to take the price when you sell. And that means that farmers, more than anything, want certainty. And Congress's inability to pass a farm bill has done nothing but create uncertainty. I think if Congress will focus on getting the stuff that's not related to agriculture out of the farm bill, passing a long-term farm bill, giving farmers certainty, I think we'd be doing a better job in Washington than we've been doing certainly over the last year.
2 minutes also for your answer. How would you support economic development in the 8th District?
Well, we support economic development by getting government out of the way. And I don't think you're going to hear Republicans say anything different. Government, we know, cannot create jobs. What government can do is create the kind of healthy environment that promotes innovation and promotes investment. Unfortunately, right now, Washington is penalizing people who want to invest in our economy, penalizing people who want to invest. What we need to do to spur economic growth is we need to get our fiscal house in order, and that starts with cutting the spending. But we also need to be willing to consider serious and radical tax reform. We have one of the highest corporate income taxes of any country. We need to cut that corporate income tax Give people incentive to keep those businesses here rather than moving them overseas where they can pay sometimes as little as a third of the tax rate that we pay here in the United States.
Okay, Todd, this will be your last question. You'll have 1 minute for your answer.
Okay.
Washington seems to be in a gridlock, so when, if ever, do you feel it's appropriate to compromise?
Well, I don't feel like it's ever appropriate to compromise your principles. We need leaders who are willing to work with people from different backgrounds, different viewpoints, but we should never compromise our principles. Unfortunately, in Washington right now, Republicans haven't been standing by their principles. That's how we've gotten into the situation that we're in. And so, when I'm given an opportunity to work with people who disagree with me, I'm happy to do so, as long as it doesn't require me to compromise those core principles.
That was your final question, but you do have 1.5 minutes for the closing statement when you're ready.
Great. Well, thank you all for being here tonight and suffering through now 11 of us, and I'm the last thing standing between you and the last candidate tonight. You know, to regain our country, we're going to have to start electing leaders. They're capable of convincing people that there's a better alternative than what we've been getting. That there's a better alternative to higher taxes, expanded welfare, and reams of regulation. We need to start electing leaders who can appeal to aspirations, who will remind Americans that a dynamic economy, one which rewards success and, yes, occasionally allows failure, is the surest and indeed the only way to preserve the American dream for generations to come. If you all will give me the incredible honor of representing you in Washington, D.C., I pledge to do 3 things. First, I will fight relentlessly for my constituents when dealing with the federal bureaucracy. Second, I won't get sucked into life in the Washington wasteland. I know where I came from, and I can promise you that I will never forget it. And third, I will preach a message of opportunity every chance I get. I'll appeal to the aspirations of young Americans so we can grow our base and ensure that this remains the greatest nation in the history of the world. If you're looking for a candidate with decades of experience, I'm clearly not your guy. But if you're looking for someone who will do his best to advance the conservative cause through a message of opportunity, I would surely appreciate your vote.